Okay, Chavra, we'll get moving. Happy to see everybody here, even though I can only see Sima's face. Hello.
Hi.
But we'll get going. I hope everybody had an amazing Purim, and we're holding now by chapter 12 in the Story of Our Lives by Rabbi Yaakov Klein, going through the famous story by Rabbi Nachman of the Lost Princess. And this chapter is a very interesting chapter because it's short and it seems to sort of focus on only one point. Kimat. Almost only one point. And there's not a lot going on here in the book, a few points here and there. But we're going to try and pull out some deep ideas, some practical, personal ideas to go along with this chapter, I hope. And, okay, so we'll see how it goes. You want to start us off, Shmuley?
Okay, we'll read it inside first. He found her, and she lamented to him greatly, saying, "If you had come on that day, you would have freed me from here. But because of one day, you lost everything. However, it is very difficult not to eat, especially on the last day when the evil urge is very strong. The princess is telling him that she will make the conditions easier for him by allowing him to eat on the last day, for it is very difficult," etc. So this is alluding to what's really going to be in the coming chapters, where she's going to give him a new set of instructions that are similar to the old set, but seemingly a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we have to figure out why it is that she's telling him. I mean, she's expressing pain. She's expressing the pain that she's in, that it didn't quite work out right now. And, specifically because he messed up with this eating bit. He got everything right for 365 days or 364 days, messed up on the last day. And she's going to fix that now by changing the game plan.
Right. So I think maybe the main title of this chapter and of everything that we're going to see today, I think really is encouragement and positivity. Because despite how it appears from the outside, at first glance, if we look closely into the words that Rabbi Nachman uses over here, we can see that there's really only positivity, only hope, and only encouragement, which is something that is absolutely fundamental and key to Breslov Torah and to the teachings of Rabbi Nachman. Welcome, Richie. Welcome. So let's get into it a little bit, right? It appears at this point in the story that the viceroy messed up on the last day. The last day. He worked for an entire year. He gave it everything he had. And he did exactly what she said. He longed. He desired. He fasted here and there. He gave it everything he had. And after a whole year of all of this work, on the very last day, he's walking down the street, down the path, back to the castle. He knows where the princess is. He's on his way back, finally. And on the trip, he stops and says, "Oh, isn't that a lovely apple right there? Beautiful, shiny, crisp apple." And he goes and eats the apple. And because of that, everything is lost. Everything is lost because of that one little thing. And the princess comes now, and she's lamenting. She's mitztaeres lefanov. She's sad. She's upset in front of him. And she says, because of that one day, if you would have come on that day, if you just would have come straight here, you would have freed me. But because of that one day, you've lost everything. Because of that one day, you lost everything. So let's start with that. So we spoke in the last few chapters about the importance of the Yom Acharon, the last day, and how the last day, for a Jew to finish something, to complete something, to put that final seal on and have something holy done is unbearable in the eyes of the Satan. So we'll always find ourselves on that last day with the biggest struggle that we have. Meaning at the end of whatever we're trying to do, we're trying to work towards something holy, we're always going to find that at the end, that's going to be the hardest part. That's what happened over here, and that's how he messed up. And this is what the princess is saying to him right now. But there's something hidden in there. There's something hidden in there. And the way that I think of it is like this. Here's the encouragement, right? Is that if the viceroy was really a nebuch, and the princess thought that, okay, he messed up, he's not going to happen. Like, imagine you're an employer, right? And you have a business, and you hire an employee, and you see that they work the first couple days, and you see this person is not responsible. They show up late all the time. They're messing things up. They're not doing well. They're costing you money. They're not nice to the other people. They don't get along with anybody. They can't work with anybody, right? And finally something happens that's like unforgivable. And the employer is faced with the moment where he's going to say, okay, this that you just did is a big problem. You're out of here. I don't want to see you again. Why? Because this person has nothing. Is not showing up on time, is not good at the work, is mean, doesn't get along with other people. There's no reason why I should think that this person is going to be an asset to my company. So you're out of here. Like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Just go. You're done. Right? That's because there's no hope. There's no reason to think things are going to be any better. Masha'en kain. If you have a person that comes into the company and everyone likes them. Everyone gets along with them well. And they're conscientious, they're showing up on time, and they're pretty good, they're a quick study, right? They're doing well, things are progressing nicely, and they make that same big mistake, that sort of unforgivable mistake. So what does the boss come and say to that person? The boss comes and says, this thing that you did is really bad. And it's going to cost us a lot of money. And it's a big problem. And we got to make sure this never happens again. But let's put the things into place to make sure that never happens again. Let's move on. The fact that I'm not firing you is because I think you're amazing. And I think you have real potential. And I see that you're going to be a very good part of this company. So it's really bad what happened, but let's move on. Right? If the person has no hope, there's no hope that this person is going to be good, you don't even have to talk about anything. Just, you know what? You're fired. That's it. You don't even have to tell them how bad it was and why it was a problem, what they did, because you're out of here. There's no hope. So Rabbi Nachman's telling us over here, the reason why she says like that, she's mitztaeres lefanav. She's showing him that she's really upset because he could have done it. Because he's a powerful person, and he's gonna be the guy who's gonna free me. I can see this. So I'm really upset because he was almost there, and then it didn't happen. Right? If you would have just come that one day, you did great the whole year. You did everything you're supposed to do. And because you didn't come that one day, now we find ourselves in this situation. The fact that she's talking to like this is because of the hope that she has in him. Right? And this is something that we have to transfer, every one of us, into our own lives. Right? And we have to understand this. This is the way Hashem looks at us. We also have to understand it the way we deal with other people. Right? The way we deal with our spouses and our children. And we have to learn from the princess here how we're going to deal with them. We have to show them that we care and that we really believe in them. And we really believe that they can accomplish something. And from there, tell them why there's something wrong. But I know that we can make this work together. And I know we can get through this together. Right? That's I think the main point of this first few lines of this part of the story. What do you think?
Yeah, it's as you were saying that, it was just occurring to me how it's interesting. You're bringing this metaphor to how it's the princess not losing hope in the viceroy, or the employer not losing hope in the employee, or however you want to apply it. But it's interesting that from the beginning of the story, we kind of see a reciprocation of something that happened in the reverse before. Before, it was the princess who going back way back to the beginning of the story, it was the princess who was lost and really kind of messed up, so to speak, by allowing herself to get lost.
Right.
And it's the viceroy who didn't give up on her and searched and searched and searched and searched.
Mm-hmm.
And now things have kind of reversed, right? The princess is giving the viceroy, okay, this is now what you need to do to free me.
Right.
And now he's messing up. And she's instilling that faith in him and about him.
Right.
So I'm just thinking how that applies to us, and how we understand those two different roles right now, even though we've mentioned a number of times the story's not entirely linear, and sometimes you got to forget about the labels of the characters and just think a little bit bigger than that. But even within the way that we think about what they are, right? So when the princess is lost, you could say that the 6 sons part of our lives, it might be in order, right? We might be going through the motions, going to work, taking care of the family, doing what we need to do, being by minyan, keeping, lighting Shabbos candles, going through all of that, but there's no passion, right? And we have to go through that process of discovering where the princess, knowing that the princess is out there and findable and attainable, and not lose hope and belief in ourselves to do that. And then once you begin to find the princess, right, and we've already been involved now for a year, right? He's been sitting and he knows where she is and knows what to do and has experienced a little bit of it, right? And we mentioned that part of the way that he's going about freeing her is by emulating her, right? But through this avodah, through this work of yearning. And now you messed up in something else. It wasn't in the yearning for the princess was there, right? Our passion for Yiddishkeit might have been there, but maybe we had some other kind of nefila, some other kind of fall, right? And we have to be. It's just interesting
that's
how it now mirrors
That's a really
back.
good observation, I think.
Yeah,
that's a very good observation. Yeah.
So whichever thing it is that we're strong in or weak in at a given time, we need to know that we have that ability. It's built in. It's built into whatever aspect of us you want to talk about.
Right.
To know that we can succeed and we will succeed.
Right. So you know what? If I could say something here, because the way that you're explaining this is a great segue into something I heard Moshe Weinberger say, which is really awesome. We got to step back to the last chapter to think about this. But in the last chapter, we saw that what happened. What did the viceroy eat to ruin the whole thing? Is he ate an apple, which in Hebrew is called a tapuach, right? Tapuach. And we're going to find something a little deeper within the meaning of that Hebrew word, tapuach. But first of all, we have to know that it's a little crazy. And the first thing is that he went after his eyes. He went after his eyes, and we're going to see a tikkun for this next chapter. But he went after his eyes, meaning the viceroy allowed himself to be drawn into the vanities of the world by being drawn after his eyes. Just think about it for a second. He spent an entire year of fasting on and off, and longing and desiring, and putting all his powers and all his koiches into this endeavor. And on the final day that he's been looking forward to the whole year, he's been planning for, he's walking from where he is right to the palace to see the princess, to free the princess. And he goes, "Oh, what's that? That looks like a delicious apple. Are you kidding me?" Like, he shouldn't have left the path for 1 second. He should have been straight there. Doesn't matter what he sees. Even if he saw an old lady who needed help across the street, maybe then. But even if he saw something fantastic, he should not have gone off the path on the last day when he's right there. What is it? What's happening here? Right? After his eyes for that delicious apple? It doesn't make sense. So Weinberg explained like this. He said, one of the ways that we can understand the concept of the apple. So tapuach comes from the same Hebrew shoresh, the same Hebrew root, as the word for blowing something up, right? Like nafuach. So we say, for example, we say in our prayers in the morning, Elakai neshama shenafachta bi, the soul that you blew into me, right? We say when Hashem blew the soul of Adam HaRishon into him, it said vayipach ba'apav Ruach Chaim. He blew into him. So this concept of lehafiach, of tapuach, nafuach, right, is the idea of blowing something up, inflating something, right? And this world has this attribute very, very strongly in a few different ways. Things get overblown, overinflated, meaning what? That we put a tremendous amount of importance onto these little things that are really not important. And when we do that, we get either pulled after them or we get pulled down by them. So let me give you an example. With regards to taivas, to physical desires, like desires for food. So we all get pulled into this, right? And we see different kinds of delicious food that we know that is not healthy for us, and we know we don't want to eat. And if anyone struggles with overeating or weight, then for sure they know they don't want to do it. But yet, we see this food and something pulls us to it. It seems so right at the time, or it just seems like we have to do it. And then the second later, after we finish gorging on this food, how do we feel? We feel terrible. Why? Because it's nothing. It's totally valueless. A few seconds of pleasure, followed by a whole bunch of guilt, and the whole thing was inflated in front of me. It was just blown up to something very amazing that I have to have for myself, right? So that's one side. That's one way that we can get pulled away from our mission to go get the princess, is when the pleasures of the world are overblown. And all these pleasures, these temporary pleasures, right? The key way that we know that they're not real is that the moment after we finish with these types of pleasures, whether it's this type of physical pleasure or other types of physical pleasure, if you know what I'm talking about, right? The second after we're finished, it's just, you don't feel good. You feel bad about what you just did, because it's not a real pleasure. But there's another way that we can have this blowing up of things that can affect us in a very negative way, sort of in the opposite way. And that is, we can put overimportance on things that we get involved in that may seem negative, that may be negative. We can imagine that things that I've done in my life are so huge and are so big, mistakes that I've made are so gigantic, my negative traits, the things that I'm not happy about myself about, I can assume that they're so gigantic that they're just going to pull me down, and I cannot be on the right path because I'm so weighed down by the level of grandeur and importance that I've put onto these things. Right? So, it could be like mistakes that I've made. It could be my own shortcomings. But a person who feels very negative about themselves, everybody knows. I mean, modern psychologists talk about this all the time. If someone has low self-esteem and someone feels bad about themselves and gets involved in a cycle of this, they won't accomplish anything. They'll be stuck on the couch or in the bed, alone, watching TV, eating, right? They're just these things that are destructive qualities. Why? Because I've blown something out of proportion. What I don't realize is one of Rabbi Nachman's most important teachings that Agav we're coming to over here, which is the importance of hischadshus, of renewal, of starting fresh at every moment. Every day for sure. And as Rabbi Nachman used to say, multiple times a day, Rabbi Nachman would start fresh. Meaning, okay, you know what? I made a mistake. Like exactly what's happening in our chapter over here. I made a mistake. And you know what? It was a bad mistake. It really wasn't good. But you know what? Because I know that I can be so much better, and because I know that I'm going to be so much better, I'm leaving that mistake behind. I'm leaving the past in the past, and I'm starting fresh. I'm starting new, right? And this is really what's happening in this chapter over here. I want to just read over here If you look at the very bottom of 211 and the top of 212, this can be our negative view of the situation and how we can view ourselves in the situation. When this happens, we hear the voice of the princess echo through our being, expressing her pain over our folly and the opportunity lost at our hands. It is easy to mistake her cry as one of anger, anguish, and despair. When we do, it cripples us by bolstering the lingering notion that there is no longer any hope for us, that we will never be able to change. The venom that is injected with the bite of the snake. Right? So this is the challenge. And this is, I think, the way that we can see our own lives through this prism over here. When we feel like we're in this situation where Hashem's turned his back on us, we did something bad, okay? We've been through some stuff. And now we feel like everyone's looking down on us. We feel like Hashem is upset with us, right? When that's the feeling that we have, we know that we're off. We know that it's wrong, and we know that is the Satan. That is the Yetzer Hara. That are the negative forces trying to pull me down. I have to, at that moment, remember the story. I have to remember that I'm the princess, and I'm the viceroy, and that Hashem knows that I'm going to be successful. He knows that I'm going to be successful, and He wants me to be successful, and I have the power to be successful. And what I'm feeling right now, I just have to realize is to help me to understand something's wrong, something's been messed up. It's time to move forward. It's time to fix and to move forward. And you can do it. You have the power to do it, and you're amazing, and you're unbelievable, and it's going to happen. That's the message of this part of the story, I think. Yeah.
100%, and it's very appropriate that we're reading this. We're doing this right after Purim, which is the Yom Tif of Netzach, Teshuasam Hayisam LeNetzach. The idea of Netzach, of Nitzchias, is one of not giving up. Is one of what's the word for it? Like everlasting. Eternality, not eternality. Not giving up. It means victory, number one, and it's also, what is it? Endurance, perseverance. Yeah. Both of those things. So Purim is mamish the yontif of that, right? Like the Jews couldn't have been on a lower level, right? They're eating in the Suda of Achashverosh, right, to celebrate the fact that the Beis HaMikdash is not being rebuilt, right? Like, talk about a mess up, right? And we see from that story, obviously through Mordechai, who's the tzaddik, who's the viceroy, through Esther Amalka, who's the bas melech in the kingdom of the no good, through that we come to this tremendous victory and this tremendous joy and this tremendous reaffirmation of kimu v'kiblu and accepting the Torah and everything like that, and eventually the building of the second Beis HaMikdash all comes through that. But this idea of netzach, of not giving up, of perseverance, of endurance,
awesome,
is so prevalent in Purim. So I have to share this. I heard also from Rav Moshe Weinberger on he was talking about a totally different thing, but he was talking about the midah, the trait of netzach, of what that means as a Jew. And he said what it means is that no matter what the problem is that maybe you created on your own, or maybe it was created for you, whatever the problem is, you believe there's a solution. You know and you believe there's a solution, and you're going to continue on as if there is a solution, and you're not going to be dragged down by it. So he gave two examples. I think I'll say both of them. He said, imagine you have two guys, and they want to make they're friends, and they're both very overweight, and they want to make a pact with each other that we're gonna work together, whatever, competition, whatever you want to call it. They're going to lose weight together. And okay, but their motivations are very different. The first guy, he's very overweight, 300 plus pounds, whatever it is, and he's getting older. He can't get married because he's such a, he's really, really out of shape, and it's holding him back in that area. So he decides, okay, I want to lose weight for that reason. So he starts dieting, and he starts exercising, and he starts doing all that stuff, and and it's going really well for 3-4 months. He's down, 20, 25 pounds, whatever it is. It's going really, really well. And as Rav Moshe Weinberger says, then Shavuos comes along. And there's like a meshunadika cheesecake, like a cheesecake like has never been seen before in the Jewish world on a Shavuos or otherwise. And, he's like, he's got it. First he's saying, it's very funny the way Rav Moshe Weinberger says this. First he's saying, maybe I should just be Yotzei, having dairy on Shavuos. I should have some milk or whatever. But he starts making justification. This is not what the tzaddikim meant. They meant to have the cheesecake. They meant to do this. And anyway, he has a little taste. And 12 cheesecakes later, he's messed up. Right? He ate the apple on the last day, so to speak. And the next day, he's devastated. He messed up his whole goal of getting fit so that he can, prepare himself to hopefully meet the right one, to get married, to do everything. His goal is shot, and he just falls into this depression, and then the eating starts snowballing, and he's done. The second guy, what's his motivation? His motivation is he wants to conquer the taiva for achila. He wants to conquer his desire, the fact that eating has control over him. He wants to conquer that. And the same thing, the 3-4 months happen, and everything's going very well, and the whole Shavuos thing, and the cheesecake, and everything, it happens. But he wakes up the next day, and he's been doing great for 4 months. Everything he's been doing for 4 months has been, 4 straight months, day by day, victory, 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 victory. And there was one little loss, and today can be a victory again. He can continue on because his goal is not a goal. His goal is a process, the process of fighting against that taiva. Right? And that's really what Yaakov Klein gets into here. No progress is ever lost. It's one of the headings over here, right? You got to keep fighting. So he mentions in previous chapters, we spoke about that no good desire doesn't make, every good desire has an effect, whether it's acted on or not. And how much more so with our good actions, right? The fact that the viceroy was successful for 364 days and then on one day messed up, it doesn't invalidate those 364 days at all, because he's in it to fight. And really that's a princess type of quality, right? You're in there. He's yearning. He yearned for 364 days. He messed up one day. Okay, the next day he was right back to yearning. He's right back in the palace. Okay, what do I do? Right. He's totally still in the fight.
It's like 6 sons to be trying to lose a certain number of pounds.
Yeah.
And it's princessy to be trying to be in control of your physical desires.
Right.
Yeah.
So he gave one other example also, just to bring it into the realm of Kedusha and Yiddishkeit, although Taivas Achila is a whole thing we can talk about for probably a couple hours. But the other example he gave, okay, so imagine 2 friends who are in yeshiva. They're in yeshiva learning, right? And they're both great learners. And one guy is in yeshiva because his dream is to be a Maggid Shiur. He wants to be a Rebbe, he wants to be a Rosh Hashiva, he wants to be, whatever it is. He wants to have students, he wants to write books one day, right? Very lofty goals, pretty lofty goals, right? And he's in yeshiva and he's learning and everything's going well. But that guy, if he comes to a Gemara or a Tosfos that he can't understand, he's ripped apart by it. He's like, how am I going to accomplish my goal of, being, a Maggid Shiur, a Rosh Hashiva, of writing Svarim if I can't understand a Tosfos, I can't understand a Gemara, I can't understand a Halacha, whatever it is. He's messed up. The other guy, his goal of being in yeshiva is, I want to bring Nachas Ruach to Hashem by learning Torah. He wants to learn Torah because it's the will of Hashem that we learn Torah, and it's what connects us to Him, is to learn Torah. If he's learning and learning and learning and learning, and then he comes to something he doesn't understand, he's not bothered, because he's in the fight. He's yearning. He's learning. He's making that connection.
He's yearning. He's learning.
Yeah, he's yearning for learning.
It occurs to me as you're saying this, that there's an interesting thing that Rabbi Nachman likes to say in his derech halimud, the way that he advises that we should learn Torah, right? Is that we should go relatively quickly learn, as opposed to dwelling on small things for months and months and months, is to move forward page by page. And if you come to something that you don't understand, keep going ahead, because likely you by the time you get to the end, you will come to understand that piece that you missed in the first place, which I happen to think is just logically a very, very good way to learn. But it occurs to me it's a very princessy way of learning, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's the same thing. It's not just about me becoming someone who knows more than other people, and that I can go now and show everyone how much I know. It's just what I'm learning. Hashem, okay, I don't get this. I'll go to the next page. Hashem, you want me to learn, right? You understand?
It's being invested in the process instead of being invested in the goal.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. It occurred to me also, as you're talking, you said some awesome stuff there. I got good things to respond to it. It occurred to me also that when we're talking about Purim, and this exact idea that we're speaking about here, about knowing, having confidence, and knowing that we're going to be successful. So not allowing a momentary failure to bring you down, right? So this is, of course, the awesomest part, the famous Esther moment in the middle of the Megillah, right? What does Mordechai say to Esther? It's like right at the biggest moment of crisis. And Mordechai says to Esther, go to the king now. Go and tell him and deal with it, help to save us. And she says, yeah, Mordechai, I can't just go to the king. There's rules. You can only go to the king in a certain way, in a certain time. And Mordechai says to her, famous words, Esther, Revach v'hatzala lavoy laYehudim. It's going to come. The salvation is going to come. Everyone's going to be saved. It's happening. There's no question. But maybe you were only put here into the castle so it could happen through you. In other words, you're here for a reason, and it's going to be successful. So forget about what's going on and step up and be part of the process with confidence, with emunah, with happiness, right? There's nothing to be afraid of here now, right? It's the same idea. It's totally amazing. It's what's happening here. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next point. So, the next point in the book is titled "No Progress is Ever Lost." I mean, we're already on our way there a little bit. But so just 1 second. Hold on a minute. Yeah. So there's something that happens here that's hard to understand. The thing that's hard to understand, that doesn't really make sense, is that so the viceroy was told not to eat on the last day, and he ate on the last day. So the princess comes, and after this failure, and after she says to him what she said to him, she says, okay, I get, you know what, that it was really hard to not eat on the last day. That's probably too much. So in the next time, we're going to lower some of those conditions. We're going to make it not so difficult. And it's going to be next time that he doesn't have to stop eating on the last day. That's too hard, says the princess, right? So the question is, it seems strange, right? And it's hard to plug this into how it fits into our lives. So first of all, you'd think that if he messed up with the levels of protection that she put in the first place, that it should be the opposite. Let's put in some stronger levels of protection. Maybe, don't eat the last day and don't even look at any food the last day. Don't divert your eyes from anything. Don't see any food. Don't think any food. Don't touch any food. Like we're coming up to Pesach, where we have to be so careful with chametz. So the Chachamim made extra rules. You're not allowed to own chametz. You're not allowed to even see chametz on Pesach, right? Maybe we should have made extra rules. But she says, no, I see that was too difficult. Next time around, you're going to be able to eat. It seems weird. It's hard to understand. How does that fit into the way that we understand this? Rabbi Yaakov Klein brings a Gemara from Menachos that tells us this exact principle, that someone who's a Baal Tshuva actually needs to make themselves extra gezeras, extra fences, in order to protect themselves from averas, from failing. Whereas someone who's a tzaddik gamor, who was born a tzaddik already, doesn't need to put in such things, right? Meaning, if you've failed already, if you've come from a lower place, you need extra rules, not less rules. Seems to be what the havamin is, what the thought might have been, right? But that's not what the princess is saying over here. And how does that relate to us in our own journey, right? What does that mean to us? It means like we've been, like if you think about it, we've been struggling, we've been working, we've been going through, and we're taking the advice of the princess, and we're really building our yearning, and we're working really hard, and we're trying, we're making rules for ourselves, and maybe one of them even has to do with our eating, and then we make a big mistake. So that thing that we made a mistake on, we shouldn't even bother with anymore? It doesn't seem right. Shouldn't it be that that's something we really have to work on? Right? Are you with me on this? It seems counterintuitive. So I have a few thoughts on this. Yeah, you have anything you want to say on this, Shmuley? I have 3 ideas on this. We'll see.
Yeah.
See how it goes. Yeah.
So I mean, it's related to what we've been saying, what I've been saying, that I think the idea here, one of the ways there's a number of ways to interpret it. One of the ideas here is, it's again what we're saying, that no progress is ever lost. The point of this first year of instruction of, fast sometimes and don't eat on the first year, it already got him into the battle. It got him into the mindset of what he needs to be doing, right? And he had this very specific goal of one part of it was don't eat, but he's been yearning, right? It seems like it's a much smaller part of the goal, right? 364 days of doing everything that he's been doing until now is much more challenging than, okay, he messed up on one day. So I think on a personal level, and I also struggled with this a lot, what are we supposed to do with it? If we're on this journey of self-improvement and we mess up with this one specific thing that was a specific goal of ours, it's just not letting that drag you down. It's not letting that drag you down. It's coming to, because of the growth that you've had during that time, and you're surely on a much higher level. You're surely on a much higher level, even after you messed up on the last day. You can take on what's next with now the realization that not all is lost if I trip. If I trip and fall here and there, I now understand that not all is lost, because what I've gained in that time is the ability to get back up and know that I'm still in the game.
Right. So that's very good.
If that makes sense.
I think there's like I said, I have a few ways to think about this in different ways, but let me go through a couple. So first of all, what were we doing that whole year? Maybe there was something we had to learn that year in the current place we are in our lives. Maybe we went through a year and we had a certain avodah, a certain work that we had to do during that year. And in that year, that work for the viceroy was he had to fast a lot. And on the last day was sort of like the culmination of that. He had to fast on that day. So he did. He spent the whole year yearning, fasting, working hard, right? And on the last day, he was fasting and he broke his fast. He messed up, right? So it occurred to me, especially as you're talking over here, like that year was so powerful. And he really grew a lot. And all that fasting and all that yearning and longing changed him, did something very good. But the goal is not to fast. The ultimate goal is not to fast, right? Like we think, when it comes along, we're coming up to Pesach and then summertime Shavuos and then summertime, and we're going to come on to the fasts of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, 17th Tammuz, and of Tisha B'Av.
Hopefully not.
And Mitzvah Hashem, there'll be holidays for us by that time. But when we have one of these fasts, all the rabbis, no matter what stripe they come from, all say fasting is not the end. Fasting is just the means. The fasting is there to give us a different perspective, to remove us from our physicality, to allow us to do tshuva, to allow us to think on a higher plane, not such a physical plane. The goal is not the fast. So the title of this section is No Progress is Ever Lost. He kicked it out of the park for a year. He changed. He became something amazing. And then the last day he messed up with the fast, but you know what? You just accomplished a lot in that year. You know what? Fasting is not your avodah for the next year. That's not what you're going to be doing anymore. You already went through that stage. You did something at that stage of your life, and now it's time to move on to something else. So it's interesting that we see also that the great Hasidic masters, right, for a certain period, people used to be very involved in fasting, what they would call sigufim, like sort of afflicting themselves. You know, they would do things like rolling in the snow, or lashes, these kind of things they would give to each other, right? And
lots of fasting.
And serious fasting, right? And in Rabbi Nachman's life himself, when he was a young man, I can't remember the number of times. In 1 year, I think he fasted from Shabbos to Shabbos, like a huge amount of times in 1 year, like an entire week we're talking about here, right? And we know that this was a big avodah, that for sure Rabbi Nachman in his life made a point in his life where he said, you know what, Chevra, this is not the right avodah. I used to think that fasting was what we needed to do, but now I understand that what a person can accomplish through his baidadus, through talking to Hashem, meditative discussion with Hashem, what you can accomplish through that is much greater, and you don't need the fasting if you have this. So Rabbi Nachman himself went through a process of thinking fasting was something that he needed, and it was something that he needed at that time. But then he switched around and he said, you know what? Fasting is no longer what we need right now. The Baal Shem Tov said the same thing. The Baal Shem Tov said, you know what? Fasting is not for us anymore. This is not our avodah. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. So, you know, there's a historical component over here. But I think what it means to us, this is what I think is one of the most important aspects of this, is that we have to know that we're progressing through our lives. We're changing. And what was right for me a year ago may not be right for me right now. The things that I had to work on a year ago are maybe not the things I have to work on now. And it could really have to do with fasting. It could have to do with food, right? But we may get to a point where we say, you know, those things that I was really, really focused on working on before, it's time for me to move on. And there's something new I have to work on now. And I have to be open and pliable and ready to experience what Hashem puts in front of me, right? Very important inyan for everybody in our lives in general. Like, you know, if you follow the path of a Baal Tshuva, right? So early on, when they first become religious, right? Some people go a little wild, and they start to like be extremely careful with things, and then, you know, they want to tell everybody about this new light that they've seen, right? And not only that, sometimes, unfortunately, they want to tell everybody what they're doing wrong. Right? And they'll be very careful with certain things, and very, right? And so as they're growing and starting to understand what the Torah is, what mitzvahs are, and how they relate, so they have a stage where they have to be very careful and very makpid and very, not that we don't have to keep being careful, but right, and they're very precise and very like worried almost about everything, because they're catching up and they have to become used to things that they've never been used to before, right? I have to change my whole existence. Whereas later on, the avodah might a little bit be the opposite. I'm not saying that we're stopping to do mitzvahs, we're stopping to be careful. But it might be, at a certain point, it's time to relax and focus on the relationship with Hashem. And realize that, those things, they're important. But those are just there to bring me close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I don't have to be hypersensitive. I don't have to be, you know, telling other people what they're doing wrong. I don't have to do all these crazy things, right? Yeah, they're important. I have to have those there. But I'm focusing more now on growth and on getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And on learning, like Shmuel is saying, learning from a princess perspective rather than a six sons perspective. Rather than to focus on bringing in knowledge and understanding and learning all the mitzvahs, understanding everything. Now I'm learning just because my tate likes it when I learn. And it gives him nachas. That's why I'm doing it. So things change. Yeah, I think it's an important lesson. A few other things. I think another thing that we see over here is a very important point that we've said a number of times in many of our classes. But Sandra likes this one also. She talks about this one a lot. Is she there? There she is. Which is there's literally, we'll put a little spin on it now. There's no such thing as failure. Right? There's no such thing as failure is really another translation of Ein Shum Yeush Ba'olam Klal. There's no despair, right? Because failure in our minds means, okay, yeah, I messed everything up. And it's ruined. And that's it. That's what we think failure means, right? But if we know, everyone says it. In the world they say this nowadays. Every time that I fail, it's just simply an opportunity for me to learn something, for me to understand something more about myself, about my abilities, and about the world around me. And afterwards, when I turn that hischadshus renewal switch, I'm starting fresh. Not only am I starting fresh, but I'm armed with lessons that I've learned. Failure, in that sense, is like a gift. And it's why you see all of these billionaires out there. They all say, I saw, what did we say? We said this a little while ago. Wayne Gretzky, right? He said, you miss 100%. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Right? You got to take the shots and mess up, and then sometimes you'll get them in, and you'll learn. You'll keep learning, right? We heard another one. Fail hard and fail fast. Because then you'll go through, you'll make some mistakes, and you'll learn from them, and you'll grow, and you will have a redirection based on a lesson learned. Right? I made that up. Just kidding. That's from Vered. Okay. So it's all part of this process, right? But I want to add something to it, which I think is important. Because it's one thing for us to say, this is a little bit serious here, but it's one thing for us to say, you know what? I learned a lesson. I failed. And I learned a lesson. I just went through something really hard. Could be I lost a business. Could like sometimes we speak about these things. Could be I just went through a divorce, right? It could be, we had someone here who whatever, I'm not going to go there. Let's go those two. And so sometimes I can go through those and I can say, you know what? I'm moving forward and I learned something about myself. That forced me to look deep and figure things out about myself. And I learned some skills along the way, and I learned how to better manage my business, whatever. Now I can move forward. It's not a failure, right? Just like we say, it's a ability to learn and redirect. Okay? But I think there's something else that's really, really important. And that is sometimes we don't understand what we gain from these situations. Sometimes we don't see the lesson necessarily. Sometimes there isn't a lesson. Sometimes we had to go through that, and we don't really get why, and we're not maybe going to understand why. But the Ribono Shel Olam has put us in the situation, and something's happening. Something's happening here, right? So in other words, over here in the story, the viceroy went through all this stuff, and he went through the year, he did everything he did. I'm going to say something a little bit radical here. You could argue with me if you want, please. Right? And on the last day, this wild, crazy thing happened that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem like it should have happened. The viceroy, he prepared for a year. He's waiting for this day the whole time, and he's walking along on his way to the princess, and he's like, oh, an apple. It doesn't seem like it should be. It doesn't make any sense, right? So there's a crazy concept. Crazy concept. No one is allowed to put this video out with me saying this without keeping the whole context of this, because people could use it in the wrong way, right? So there's a Gemara that tells us that David HaMelech had a certain situation with this Bathsheba, and there was a certain type of sin that happened over there, and he had to do tshuva for it, and he was chastised for it, and it was pretty serious. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, you know what, really he didn't do it. really, David loy roy loy maisa. He would never have done such a thing. But rather, Hashem made it happen in order to teach tshuva to future generations, to everyone else. To teach tshuva, the concept of tshuva, to the Bnei Israel. And the same thing by the Chet HaEgel. Doesn't make any sense that we just saw the biggest revelation of godliness in the world. We had just received the Torah, and like a few days later, they're building a golden idol. Doesn't make any sense. The Gemara says the same thing about them. That really, they were not Roy Loisa Maisa. Rather, Hashem made it happen in order to teach tshuva of a rabbim, of a large amount of people. That everyone, even a rabbim, even Klal Yisrael can do tshuva. Right? There's different ways to understand what this Gemara is trying to tell us. But one of the things that I like to take from it, and it's only when we're looking back after having experienced some type of failure, after doing some type of avera, some type of sin, is to say, you know what, I don't even know why that happened. I don't even know if I really did it.
And doing tshuva on it.
Right. I have to do tshuva. But I don't even know why this happened. In the story of the Lost Princess over here, there's still a lot to learn. There's still a whole history that has to unfold over here. Right? It can't end right now. Right? In the story. Just like Hashem didn't let Moshe Rabbeinu go into Eretz Yisrael. Just like it didn't end with Adam. It could have ended with Adam Rishon. It could have ended with Moshe Rabbeinu. These all could have been moments of Mashiach and the absolute tikkun and the final redemption. But history had to keep going. Things had to happen. More things had to happen. There's a bigger plan for the entire universe and all of creation. That it may not all be just focused on us and our little actions. Maybe it is, right? Meaning what? So this happened with the viceroy. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe the viceroy would not have done that, but maybe it had to happen. And so all the more so that he cannot look back with depression, with yush and total despair, giving up, right? I can't look at it that way. I'm part of the plan. I'm part of history unfolding, and I gotta just keep doing my parts. Okay? There was a mistake that happened here. Whatever happened, it's time to do his chadshus, renewal, and start fresh again. And start again. Right? So too, David HaMelech had to do tshuva. He had to do tshuva. Right? But he couldn't allow that to stop him and to pull him down. Right? Klal Yisrael, we had to do tshuva from the Egel, and we still have to do tshuva. Right? But we got right back up, and we built the Mishkan. And we kept going. Right? We cannot allow those things to pull us down. So we don't always know why history is unfolding the way it is and what our part in it is. We may not know, just like we may not see a skill that we're learning from our failure. We may not see how we're becoming stronger from this failure that we had. So too, we may not even know why it happened in the first place. But now we're here, and then we know that something happened, and we know that we can move on. And in the story of the Viceroy, one of the things that we see for sure, and maybe he thought about this afterwards, is just that year was an amazing year. And that year he accomplished so much, and he built himself up, and he got himself ready for the next leg of the journey. And the next leg of the journey, okay, it had to be interrupted for whatever reason. But the idea is to move on, to keep going with positivity, and to know that I can do it, and I have power, and I have strength, and I have holiness, I have a neshama, and I can move forward, and I can accomplish what needs to be accomplished. That's what the princess is telling him here. Yeah?
Absolutely.
No arguments? Come on.
I didn't know if we were gonna go here. It's a massive discussion in itself, this idea. But just to take it back, even one before. The Egel, or two before, or three before the Egel. Yeah. Adam Rishon himself, right? Actually, the act of eating from the apple, right? I mean, whether it was an apple or not is a whole discussion, but the fact that he ate from the apple, I heard this just today, that the Rebbe Reb Zusha, who we spoke about, the brother of the Reb Noam Elimelech, he said, Adam Rishon, it said, he went from he reached from the ground up to the heights of the heavens, right? And it didn't mean that he was physically tall. He was literally the first man. His soul contained all of the souls that would ever be, right? All the neshamas that would ever be existed in him. He was a massive person. He saw every. He was more spiritual than he was physical, probably in the very beginning, before he ate, right? Reb Zusha said, "How could he eat the apple? How could he eat that? He had one thing to do: don't eat the apple." And he eats that. It's this question, right?
It's the same thing, exactly.
Yeah. It's the same exact thing. So the Reb Zusha said it wasn't him. He said it was me. He said my soul was in his hand, and I pushed it. I pushed it. His point was that, and I heard the story also from Rav Moshe Weinberger. He says he believes that Reb Zusha, he knew what he was talking about. He said this with whether it means literally that his neshama was in the hand or not, maybe yes, maybe no. But his point was that it was something that it had to happen.
Right.
There were reasons why it had to happen. There were reasons why, all of creation maybe wouldn't have existed. God wouldn't have necessarily had the creation that he wanted had things not played out this way. Hashem wanted this Torah. Hashem wanted this storyline to happen, and he wanted us to serve him from exactly where we are in our story.
Right.
And with the Viceroy also, it's very clear that the story's not supposed to end here. He's not supposed to accomplish what he did on the last day and free the princess and happily ever after. There's a lot more stuff.
Because it's not that easy.
Right. There's a lot more stuff that, he's got a ways to go in his journey.
So let's put in this caveat. It's important in the two things that Shmuley and I said, because normally these things are you have to be careful saying these things in public.
Extremely.
But all this stuff that we're saying right now, that sometimes things happen, and like even the Chet of Adam Rishon, it's only the way that we look back on what happened. We never say, "Oh, you know what? I want to do this thing that's against Torah law right now. So it's probably okay because maybe it's supposed to happen." God forbid. We would never say such a thing. Before we get into such a situation, we do everything in our power to stop ourselves and to hold ourselves back. And we should be strong, and we should stop. We should not experience these things. Only afterwards, after something has happened and we've given everything we got to not be in such a situation, can we look back and have such a thought, right?
And after doing tshuva on it.
After doing tshuva, yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Like if a person wakes up and says, "Oh my gosh, what did I do yesterday?"
Yeah.
That was supposed to happen.
Right.
No, like you got to do tshuva.
It's got to be serious.
And after the fact, you say, "Okay, that clearly that had to happen."
Right. But this is something that is brought down in many sources, and sometimes it can give us strength, and sometimes it can help us to hear it. I know that there's people here with us right now who are experiencing difficult times, and maybe with some family members who are going through a lot, and find themselves in places that you would never expect such people to find themselves, in really bad situations, right? And sometimes it's important to think, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to try everything I can, right, to help this person, to help my family member, to help my children. Whatever I can do, I'm going to do, right? But when I see that I'm doing my part and the person is still stuck, the person is still in such a bad situation, things are still so difficult and so traumatic, right? Sometimes I have to say, okay, I'm trying hard, I'm doing everything I can, but it seems like right now, this is what Hashem wants. This is where it's supposed to be. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep doing my part, and I know we're going to come out successful. I know we're going to make it to the end somehow, whatever it's going to be, right? But just like the story, I have to look back and I have to say, it's time to move on. His chadshus, I'm going to start fresh, and just like I was working tomorrow, I'm going to work hard again today. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday. I'm working hard again today. That's the his chadshus of this aspect also. So I think there's a few great quotes over here. Let's just finish off with maybe these two quotes. These are tremendous quotes from Rabbi Nachman that I've seen so many times, and I always like to say them over. So we'll finish with these two awesome quotes, and then we'll get ready for the next week. The first one is on page 214. It says, in the words of Rabbi Nachman, this is going on the fact that the Viceroy really needed to remember everything that he did was of value, and that all that stuff he did that year was powerful and important and tremendously good, and that it's not all those good things are not wiped out by one moment of a poor decision. All that good still exists. So Rabbi Nachman says, and know that every moment and detachment you make, every movement and detachment you make, that each time you separate yourself, even if only a little bit, from your physicality and turn towards Hashem, they are all collected and bound together, and they come to your assistance in a time of need. So Rabbi Nachman explains over there where he writes this in Aye. He explains that we should never think, God forbid, like this is another important point. It's not only did all those things have value, but at the end, when I really need them, when I'm getting to the point of my ultimate salvation, my ultimate geula, all those things that I did are going to come bundled together with me and give me the assistance that I need at that moment. Not only were they good, but they're going to be with me. And they're going to give me extra power and extra strength when I really, really, really need them most. God willing. That's the first quote. Second quote that I want to say is on page 215, the last one here. It says the difference, this is from Reb Nosson. So this happened when Reb Nosson was printing the Sfarim, the books of Rabbi Nachman, right? And this for Reb Nosson was like his life's work. And you can't, if you read, there's a fantastic book called Through Fire and Water, which sort of details the life of Reb Nosson and everything that he went through. And it's an English book, fantastic read. It's totally amazing. You learn about most of the life of Rabbi Nachman also. Oh, there it is, right there. Yeah, that's it. It's so amazing. But so he put everything he got, all his power, all his strength. He suffered persecution. He suffered physical attacks. You can't imagine what he went through in order to be able to sustain the Torah of Rabbi Nachman and to print his books. Everything that we have from Rabbi Nachman is because of Reb Nosson, right? So the quote that he's saying over here came at a time when he was printing the Sfarim and there was a paper shortage. There was no paper available anymore. He said like this, listen to this. This is total princess talk. The difference between something that is holy and something that is not holy is as follows. When building a house, if it is not finished, all efforts have been wasted. But in a holy project, anything that is done is already an accomplishment. I am satisfied with what I have accomplished. Whatever I have printed until now is not wasted. Meaning, if you got to fix your car, and you take out a few spark plugs and you put one in, but you don't plug the things back in the right place. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So you didn't do anything, right? You can't drive your car now. Nothing's happening, right? Or his example is much better, building a house. If you don't finish the house, right, you don't have a place to live. It's not nothing, you didn't do anything, right? Mashain Kain, if you're working on something holy, you're putting in effort for something of holiness. Every moment that you're working on it, you're accomplishing something. Every moment every page he printed was something holy and something special and was a mitzvah and was giving Hashem nachas, was bringing him closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every step of the way is powerful. Once again, sometimes we see how we grow and how we change and how we benefit from all the work that we put in. Sometimes we won't see it. And this is why we need this encouragement, this hischazkus, is to tell us that all those steps are super important, are super meaningful and precious to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with that, we'll understand that this whole chapter is all about encouragement, positivity, and not giving up, and always starting again, starting fresh, and going forward with confidence, and knowing our good points, and knowing that we're going to be successful and that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish in the world. Any questions or comments? Sandra, go ahead.
Okay, I know I missed the first half an hour, so I hope I'm not duplicating, but what inspired me in this chapter was when he woke up, they say you start at a different place, so you don't start at the same place. And I thought that was pretty profound, because a lot of times we get stuck because we think we're actually at the same place, and we don't realize we're in a new place. And the other thing is, I found that it's layers. So you have a test, and then you pass it, and then a year later, 6 months later, you have another test in the same area, and you're thinking, oh my God, I thought I made it through this. And it's like, so I have to remind myself I'm not at the same place and not to go backwards and say, okay, I'm in a different place. I've learned something, and remind myself, because it's easy to get stuck and pull myself backwards sometimes, and to say, hey, no, you're not in the same place. So I thought that was pretty inspiring.
That is an awesome point.
She's mechaven to something very, very deep and Kabbalistic that my friend Chaskel Zions, is he still here?
He left.
He left. He shared with me that it's brought from Rabbi Nachman. In the realm of the Spheres of Kabbalah, we know, I think we've spoken a little bit about this in this shiur, we know that in the beginning Hashem had to retract himself, right, in order to make an empty space, what we call the Cholol Haponui. Right? There's just, Hashem had to make room for there to be a universe, because before that he was everything. So he retracted himself. And then there's this, what's called the Cove. It's like the line, the sustenance line that pierces through that empty space, and from the center of there, existence starts to form with the various layers. And on the lowest layer of that, in the order of the spheres, is Malchus, right? And then Malchus, going upwards, you get Yesod, you get Netzach, Hod, etc., up until Keser. So when we're starting our journey, and or wherever we are on the journey, we're in this kind of realm. Let's say we're in Malchus, right? And it's an all-encompassing realm, and around that you would have sort of the next layer of Yesod, and around that, when we're talking about it in the realm of spheres, this is not physical stuff. We have to mention this, it does not mean this physically, but on some level it's an expression of how this works out spiritually. But there's these layers, exactly like you're saying. And you would think that you're moving up through layer number 1, and then you break through, and then you're into layer number 2. But he said from Rabbi Nachman, he brought from Rabbi Nachman that that's not exactly how it goes. Between layer number 1 and layer number 2, there's this Cholol Haponui. There's this empty vacuum space that's still there. So what that means is
making a separation between the two.
It's making a separation between the one sphere and the sphere that's above it. And in between there's this empty space. So you would think that as soon as you break through one level, you're right up into the second level, and you're just going up and up and up and up. But no, you break through a level and you're back at, literally it feels like you're back in square one, in terms of you're getting hit with this stuff that was juvenile, easy stuff that you dealt with, whatever it was, 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, however long it was, because you're in this empty void of a space. But really that space is a necessity of something you need to go through in order to get to the level that's above that. So
and we should just realize that, like we've said this before in a few other of the Torahs in Reb Nachman, when I get to that, I should realize it's not because I'm terrible and I'm the worst person ever, and that's why I'm experiencing this. It's specifically because I just got higher.
Right.
I just became something better, a better version of myself. And now I'm facing the demons of my new level of existence.
Yeah.
Right? Totally important.
So I think maybe on some level, maybe that's why, we say, okay, you're in this void, in this empty space now, and you're getting hit with all this stuff, and the princess is telling you, okay, you don't have to worry about.
Right.
Yes, you had this fall, and you shouldn't have had it, and you should have tried to overcome it. But we're kind of past that,
right?
And it's like you were talking about this before. It's there was something I needed to really work on a year ago, and there's something I need to work on right now. No. They're not necessarily the same thing.
Right. Yaakov, is your hand up? Your virtual hand?
No, do we have to unmute him? Or?
Yes, Rob.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
My hand has been up so long, it's tired. I have to put it down.
Your virtual hand has to be put down. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I have three things to say.
Yeah.
The first one is I want to thank the Rav and the Rebbitzin for allowing me the opportunity to come to your Purim party and the ability to do the mitzvah of Suda. Thank you. I'm grateful for that.
Our pleasure, of course.
Number two,
Rabbi Yaakov,
there's a saying...
Rabbi Yaakov,
yes.
We couldn't do it without you.
Oh, don't flatter me. Of course you could.
It wouldn't be the same.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that. The second comment is that in the self-help world, there is a saying that you referred to by self-esteem earlier in the meeting. The saying is, what you speak about and think about, you will bring about. So if you're always thinking negatively, talking negatively, whatever, you are sure to bring that about in your life, and vice versa. And number 3, hey, see, because of my age, I forgot number 3. No, I remember it. There's a book out, a series of books by Dr. Richard Carlson called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. At work, with your family, at home, etc., etc. And his first phrase ever was, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. So those are just words I wanted to.
Well, that's the inflated apple of this world, right? Don't get fooled by thinking everything's inflated to being so important. Yeah, awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Fantastic, Rabbi Yaakov.
Like the first one.
Yeah, shkoyach, very good. Awesome.
Toda.
Okay, all the best. Anybody else? No? All right, Lindo, nothing? Okay. A song maybe? No? Next time. All right, everybody. Have an amazing, amazing week. And look forward to seeing you all on next Monday. All the best.
Good night.